I think what I'm most unhappy with is the House quit tonight. They quit on the taxpayers of Texas.
An unexpected ending at the Capitol leads to a new round of criticism. We'll look at what passed, what failed, and what's next after the special session. First, the deadly violence after a white supremacist rally brings condemnation and new questions. Why a rally now planned for Austin is causing concerns. Good morning and thank you for joining us for State of Texas. I'm Josh Hinkle. Last weekend's violence in Charlottesville, Virginia dominated the nation's news this week. And here in Central Texas, it's bringing difficult discussions about racism and politics. Texas Congressman Michael McCaul wants his colleagues to address the violence in Charlottesville in a full hearing of the Homeland Security Committee. Democratic committee members called for a special hearing on September 12th. Chairman McCaul's letter asks members to question the heads of major departments and bureaus about domestic terrorism. McCaul issued a statement condemning racial intolerance and said we must rid our nation of the scourge of white supremacism. Lawmakers across Texas put out similar statements condemning the violence, but it's given new fuel to the efforts to remove monuments and other public items that honor the Confederacy. Here in Austin, vandals spray painted over signs for Robert E. Lee Road. A few days later, city council members announced their support for calls to rename the South Austin Road. One state lawmaker is calling for the removal of plaques and statues honoring the Confederacy from the state capitol. State Representative Eric Johnson from Dallas wrote a letter to the State Preservation Board. Specifically, he wants a plaque removed from the Capitol extension near his office erected in 1959. He points out the plaque's inscription. It reads, "The preservation of slavery was not an underlying cause of the Civil War." Representative Johnson says the state's own documents of secession contradict the claim. Representative Johnson said lawmakers owe it to the people to take out inaccurate accounts of history. Texas House Speaker Joe Straus responded by calling for a review of the accuracy of Confederate memorials at the state capitol. Johnson said he's been pushing for this since 2015 and it's time to move now. He responded to Straus saying no study needed, just a history book and a crowbar. In light of recent events, Representative Johnson also wants a meeting to discuss removing all Confederate monuments from the Capitol complex. Right now, there are more than a dozen monuments or memorials to Confederate figures on the Capitol grounds. There's also a state holiday for Confederate Heroes Day. An effort to rename the holiday failed in the 2015 legislature. But there are people in Texas who do not want those memorials to be removed. Senator Ted Cruz spoke about the conflict many Texans feel between condemning racism and preserving Civil War monuments that honor the Confederacy.
It is an agonizing issue for many because it revisits our country's troubled history with race relations and slavery. The original sin of America was slavery, and we fought a bloody civil war to expunge that sin. And I think that issue is going to be resolved differently, community by community. I don't think it's beneficial to go through and try to sanitize history and try to erase the Civil War.
The heated atmosphere after Charlottesville has Austin leaders preparing for backlash to what's being called a Dixie Freedom Rally. Organizers scheduled the rally and march for September 23rd in downtown Austin. Our Kylie McGivern spoke with the man organizing the rally. She explains what goes into clearing such an event with the city.
Brad Oxford with the Texas Confederate Militia organized the rally he says sparked an onslaught of threats.
We're getting constant threats, at least 100 of them a day, every day.
He spoke with us from the Dallas area, wanting, he says, to set the record straight.
We're trying to show people that we're not the racist that they think we are. We're not part of the Klan. We're not part of any white supremacist groups at all.
Oxford says the rally was planned well before the deadly violence in Charlottesville.
Just so people are clear, what is your message when it comes to what happened in Charlottesville?
It was a disgrace to everybody that was there, all sides, all people. It should never have happened.
But those counter-protesting this group say this event is predicated on white supremacy and racism is intrinsic to any event glorifying the Confederacy.
The neo-Nazi and white supremacist movement that we're seeing show itself in other cities does not belong here. It's not who we are.
Austin's mayor says the city is putting a plan together to ensure everyone's safety.
We value the rights of free speech, even when the speech isn't what we like to hear. So this is a city that's going to uphold those standards and to do it in a way that keeps us safe.
Kylie McGivern for State of Texas.
The organizers of the Dixie Freedom Rally wanted to hold their event on Labor Day weekend, but they moved the event to September 23rd after discussions with Austin police. APD has a lot of experience with monitoring protests. Chief Brian Manley spoke about how the department handles potentially volatile events.
The main thing that we use here in the Austin Police Department, we have a special response team, and this is a team that many of you all are aware of. It's our officers that have received special training and have special equipment that aid in handling large-scale demonstrations. The motto of this team is defend the first, and that is what they're focused on, is letting people exercise their First Amendment rights to free speech, but we ensure to the best of our abilities that it is done in a proper, safe, and lawful manner.
We also reached out to APD about how they oversee rallies like this one. While they don't discuss specifics, they say they will deploy a number of resources to ensure the safety of everyone involved. They also say if the group does not follow APD's directions, it will verbally warn protesters before making any arrest. As a candidate on the campaign trail, Donald Trump promised to renegotiate the terms of NAFTA. Now, as president, he's trying to follow through on the promise. But see why that has some Texans worried about the impact.
Signy die.
And an unexpected ending to the special session, how the governor is celebrating and criticizing the work of lawmakers at the Capitol. Texas lawmakers called an early end to the special session on Tuesday. Republicans didn't pass everything they'd hoped to, and the finger pointing began almost immediately. KXAN's Wes Rappaport has more.
Signy die.
The night ended in a way few predicted. Both chambers adjourned sine die, business complete with no plans to take up anything else.
We haven't addressed half the things that we need to do. Instead, we've been fooling around on social issues, which I think Texans deserve a little bit better.
The House did pass a public school finance package, but it was a hollowed out version of the one it sent to the Senate. It'll provide some funding for retired teachers, autism and dyslexia programs, and boost charter schools, but not to the extent its author hoped.
We're going to continue to beat our heads against the wall. We passed many important things, but there's nothing was more important than school finance reform this session, and I feel like we failed the 5.3 million children in the state of Texas.
Education Committee Chairman Dan Huberty said the Senate did not want to settle on school finance. The House leveraged the school finance bill, and a property tax relief bill was left out to dry. Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick says House Speaker Joe Straus let personal politics get in the way of productivity.
The governor called 20 issues on the special session call, and the speaker said they were horse manure, and he treated it like horse manure.
He says the Senate did its job by passing 18 of the governor's 20 agenda items.
We did all this work. Most of the bills weren't even referred.
And I'm just sorry, quite frankly, as much as we want to go home, the state of Texas needs us to continue to pursue our hard works.
So what happens now? Well, Governor Abbott could call a second special session. We received a statement from his spokesperson that says, quote, "Our office believes this special session has produced a far better Texas than before."
Wes Rappaport for State of Texas.
Governor Abbott originally called lawmakers back to Austin and gave them a list of 20 items to pass. They included a bathroom privacy bill, property tax reform, school finance reform, and sunset bills to continue the Texas Medical Board and regulate medicine. After a month of work, half of those bills did not pass. Among them, that bathroom bill, along with tax dollars to help disabled children go to private schools and limiting budgets and taxes for local governments. But half did pass, including the sunset bills, school finance reform, and a bill requiring women to purchase extra insurance to cover abortions. The governor said bills that were passed were signs of success during this special session, but he had critical words for House members, blaming them for stalling half of his agenda.
There were, I think, 10 of my 20 items that did not pass. Of those 10, 9 never received a vote on the House floor. Some never even made it even into committee, let alone out of committee. And so there were roadblocks to our ability to even get a vote. And the least that I asked for was a vote by the members of the House and Senate so that voters at home would be able to decide if they are for or against this particular legislator. Of my 20 items, the Texas Senate was able to pass 18 of them out of the Senate altogether in just 1 week, proving what I said before the session began. If items fail, it won't be because of a lack of time, it will be because of a lack of will.
The governor said passing property taxes was his top issue for the special session. It did not pass, but he did not say whether or not he would call lawmakers back for another special session to pass the bill. Now that lawmakers have headed home, what's next for the governor's key agenda items? We'll look for answers up next with our roundtable.
In many cases, their lives, businesses, and families are very much on both sides of the dividing line.
It's a popular promise from President Trump renegotiating the North American Free Trade Agreement. But see why now it's happening. Some people are worried about the impact here in Texas. The special session ended unexpectedly early. Lawmakers left a lot of the governor's agenda unfinished, and that has some folks saying they need to come back to the Capitol to get the job done. So what happens now? Joining us for perspective is Morgan Smith with our reporting partners at the Texas Tribune and James Berrigan from the Dallas Morning News. Welcome to both of you.
Thanks for having us.
So they ended early. Are they going to be coming back?
So there have been calls from a few Republican senators for lawmakers to come back, especially over the issue of property taxes. However, Governor Abbott has not definitively said that he wants to bring them back. He said it's an option that he's left on the table, but he's also brought up the cost of an additional special session. So that might be an indication that he's leaning in the other direction and kind of perhaps waiting to take this up during the next legislative session.
Well, that's a different tactic from our last governor back in 2013. You know, it was like we had one special session, then the very next day was another one, and then the very next day was another one, you know? So as soon as they were over, we were going overtime. I know, does that say anything about the way Governor Abbott is handling what he is calling his priorities?
Yeah, I don't know how much it says, but, you know, I think Governor Perry was more likely to sort of just bash heads to sort of get them to work together, and we've seen that hasn't worked for Governor Abbott. They didn't get a lot of the issues, the bathroom bill in particular, and the property tax changes done in the regular session, and then he brought him back specifically to get these done, and they couldn't get it done again in the special session. So I think to Morgan's point, he hasn't ruled it out, but he said something about like, why spend another $1 million in taxpayer money if they're not going to get things done? And I'm not sure that he knows the best way to get them to agree on that kind of stuff.
Well, I understand there is going to be like a Republican retreat for House members, right, in a couple of weeks, so they can talk about how to repair the rifts in their party, right?
That's right, and that has come out of a push from a small group of conservative lawmakers in the Texas House to adopt Republican Party platform rules on how to elect their speaker nominee. They have opposed Straus on a lot of, House Speaker Joe Straus on a lot of issues. There's a lot of talk about how he's the reason why certain bills did not move forward during the special session. But it really remains to be seen whether anything is going to come out of that retreat. And they did have a caucus meeting directly after the special session ended, and coming out of that meeting, nobody really wanted to kind of go on the record bashing Straus. Everyone was just kind of smiles and saying that, you know, they had a good discussion. So we'll just have to see what happens when that retreat
Yeah, there has
comes about.
been a lot of talk about what's going to happen to Joe Straus, the longtime speaker, in the next legislative session, assuming he's reelected to his, San Antonio post. But, you know, he's been kind of a voice for both sides because he's a moderate Republican. If there is a more conservative speaker elected next session, what would that do for that minority voice?
Yeah, and I think that's the point that the Freedom Caucus, this sort of right-wing, more conservative, really Tea Party aligned kind of group wants to sort of asked the question about. They're concerned that the property tax issue didn't get really addressed. Some issues like abortion that they thought should have been brought quicker to the House floor. And they think that a person who is more aligned with their views will sort of give them a little bit more of an edge, whereas Straus, who, as you said, is like more moderate, more sort of business oriented, especially around the issue of bathroom bills, sort of he kind of slowed it down, and they are hoping that a speaker who is more aligned with their political views will push those quicker and allow them to get more of their platform done.
Well, that's another one, the bathroom bill you just mentioned. We spent so much time on that one, and you know, nothing's come of it. Is it going to come back up, or are we just done with it for right now?
You know, I think the supporters of that legislation have vowed to come back and fight another day. But it's been interesting in interviews since the special session ended. We've had even Governor Abbott come out and say, listen, Speaker Straus told me during the regular session that he opposed it and he wasn't going to allow a vote on it. He told me leading up into the special session that he wasn't going to allow a vote on it. So really, without seeing a shift in leadership in the House, it does seem like that issue is not going to go anywhere, though, you know, however much its supporters might want that to be different.
But I think going to our previous point about the sort of more conservative-leaning House lawmakers, Governor Abbott, I think, was getting at the same thing, too, because he said something like elections matter in speaking about Speaker Straus, sort of hinting at if you want these things to get done, you need to vote for a House Speaker who's going to align more along these conservative views. On the bathroom bill, is it dead? Is it not dead? I don't know. We were pretty careful with our headline and said it's dead for now, because there's always the possibility that it's going to return in another legislative session, that we have another special session. And we've seen with other issues like sanctuary cities, where it looked like it wasn't going to go anywhere, that they brought it back time after time for another special session, and sometimes it just takes a couple sessions to pass. One
issue that kind of made it in there at the very end was school finance, and this is something that many lawmakers have wanted to address for session after session recently. It really didn't have as drastic a change as some lawmakers would have liked.
Yeah, I mean, I think when this bill passed the House on Tuesday afternoon, shortly before there was kind of the surprise adjournment for good by the House, you just saw so many House lawmakers get up and just express how disappointed they were in this legislation. They had pretty high hopes for getting $1.8 billion in funding for schools. They sent it over the Senate. It came back with about $350 million in funding for schools, and the House was forced to accept a very stripped down version of this bill. On the other hand, Governor Greg Abbott got what he wanted, which was a school finance, a commission to study school finance that would presumably come up with the big solution that you know, legislators would then enact during the next session. Though on the other side, you know, you have almost all of the leadership in the House saying, listen, we've studied this a million times, like it's time to take action. So that's another area where we're just going to see a divide between the two chambers.
And real quick, because we're almost out of time, but all the while this is all going on in these last couple of days, the redistricting issue comes back up. Guess what? Some of the districts were possibly drawn illegally, right?
Yeah, no, the court said that they were drawn illegally and that they had been drawn to intentionally discriminate in 2011, and that when the legislature came back and tried to redo it in 2013, they were again drawn with discriminatory intent and invalidated Congressman Lloyd Doggett's district here in Austin, and then Blake Farenthold's district in Corpus Christi. And so that's going to have some ramifications for the surrounding districts, possibly a couple more districts where minorities, in particular Latinos, have more opportunity to elect their candidates of choice. But the state did win some back. I mean, there were a couple in my area, in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, that the court said were fine and didn't need to be changed.
We're going to have something to talk about regardless, right?
Sure.
Thank you very much. We'll have to have you back soon.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Negotiators get down to business, ready to make some major changes to NAFTA, but the plans have some Texans worried. Why the changes could affect jobs here in the Lone Star State. As a candidate on the campaign trail, Donald Trump promised to renegotiate the terms of NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement. As president, he's trying to follow through on the promise. Trade representatives from Mexico, Canada, and the United States met this week to begin reworking the terms of the 23-year-old pact. Anna Wernicke explains why tough talk in Washington has some people in states like Texas bracing for trouble.
This is the first of several rounds.
They're calling it NAFTA 2.0. It's the new upgraded version that top trade negotiators from Mexico, Canada, and the U.S. hope to roll out in the next few months.
After modernizing, the tough work begins.
U.S. Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer says finding a deal that pleases all parties won't be easy. He says many Americans, specifically along the southern border, don't want to see major changes.
In many cases, their lives, businesses, and families are very much on both sides of the dividing line.
Christopher Wilson with the independent think tank The Wilson Center says Texas has a lot on the line if negotiators can't reach an agreement.
Texas is just at the center of the NAFTA economy.
Wilson says Texas represents 40% of all U.S. exports to Mexico. So what the state really needs is more NAFTA.
Texas has a lot to win, really, with a successful negotiation. The worst outcome for Texas would be losing NAFTA.
But many other Americans feel that NAFTA is failing and costing them jobs.
We cannot ignore the huge trade deficits, the lost manufacturing jobs, the businesses that have closed or moved because of incentives, intended or not, in the current agreement.
Lighthizer says a complete transformation is needed, echoing what President Trump calls, quote, the worst trade deal in history.
We feel that NAFTA has fundamentally failed many Americans and needs major improvement.
Anna Wernicke for State of Texas.
All three countries agree that NAFTA needs to be modernized, but they're still working out any changes that need to be made. The first round of negotiations took place last week in Washington. Round 2 begins on September 10th in Mexico. The third round of talks will take place in Canada, but negotiators have not yet set a date. Thank you again for joining us for State of Texas. Stay tuned for Meet the Press coming up at 9. I'm Josh Hinkle. Have a great day.